Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 96 of Cutscene Convos. Wow, wow, wee wow. We have got a big episode this week and a slightly different episode. Our
Little
character
different.
profile this week is covering the one and only Superman.
Mm-hmm.
We will also be discussing the second half of What If Season 2, so episode 6 through to episode 9. We'll be reviewing Aquaman 2, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. We've got Percy Jackson episode 4 to have a look at. We will also be doing our big old review for 2023. Now it's been and gone. We'll be having a little look back on it. And then we've got a content championship, which is Rogue One versus Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Rings. Another stinky, horrible one that we're going to hate.
Yeah, I don't
But
like.
we're here anyway. But for all that good stuff, Horizontal, how has your week been, my friend?
My week's been surprisingly feels like it's been busy. I don't know why
Oh,
it's been
really?
so busy. I think we've just um obviously we had New Year's Eve rolled around.
It did
The
do that.
girlfriend came over, had a very quiet, chill one, to be honest. Um then this week is just because bit of a busy like next week for like with my parents and stuff, different things going on. So like kind of having to wrap up Christmas and get the tree down and everything packed up because they're going to
Get
be
all that
so
stuff just out of the way.
yeah, because they're going to be busy for the next week. So it's like I think that just dealing with all that stuff and kind of generally getting back into the work year, um, just felt a bit of a busier one. But
Yeah,
other than that,
that's fair.
like decent enough. And I've got a quiet week with the house to myself, so can't complain.
Lovely.
How's your week been?
I was back to work, you see,
Ah,
which is just never really like the best thing after an extended
Christmas,
break.
yeah.
It's just like, oh, like I don't dislike my job as much as many people. Um,
But
but
still.
just going from being off for an extended period back to the working world is just never fun. All them things that you left behind and forgot about that you now have to pick up midway through are they're back. Then
Mm,
them meetings that everyone loves at the end of December of, oh, we'll pick this up in January. Guess what? It's January now. You've got to pick them things up.
mm-hmm.
So it was a stressful couple of days there, but got a bit of a handle on it already because I'm very good at what I do. Um, so we're getting there. And then it's just I think the obligatory feeling a little bit blue in January and
Mm,
feeling like you have to like set some perfect plan in motion to change your life over the next 12 months and then trick
yeah.
yourself into believing you're going to follow it for the entire year and that even if you do follow it, it'll work. So just the small existential dreads that come along with a new year.
Mm.
But other than that, not too bad at all. Um, but shall we get into some of the actual topics?
Yes, I think we should.
Yeah, before I just have a full on meltdown.
On the episode.
So our character profile this week's on Superman.
Mm,
Um, Coming into the new year, trying to think of a character profile was hell. Um, so we're doing Superman. Deal with it.
fair. Man of
Um,
Steel.
this is the character profile on Superman post New 52 and Rebirth. So as
Mm-hmm.
always, some of the more iconic parts of his story that you might remember from having grown up with Superman being a character might be different due to the changes they made at this time. So this is all post 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Kal-El or Clark Joseph Kent is Superman, the baby from the stars who landed in Smallville, Kansas, and became an international sign of truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. Kal-El was born to Jor-El and Lara Lorvan not long before their homeworld Krypton was destroyed. Knowing the fate of their planet, they searched for and found a safe place to send their son, and then constructed the rocket to get him there, sending him on his way mere moments before Krypton's destruction. Upon arriving in the tiny Kansas town of Smallville, he was found by a couple, Jonathan and Martha Kent. They immediately decided to protect and adopt the baby, naming him Clark. Clark Kent. While Superman's powers come from his Kryptonian DNA interacting with Earth's yellow sun, his sense of right and wrong are from the stand up job Ma and Pa Kent did raising him.
Hmm.
Including when he started school, he noticed that while he hadn't struggled to make any friends on day one, another girl hadn't been as lucky. But he feared that by becoming her friend, he'd lose the friends he'd made that day and be alone as well. When he got home and explained his conundrum to his parents, they explained that he should do what he thinks is right, even if that means losing his other friends. In the end, his actions caused the rest of the class to also befriend this girl, and it was a much more fulfilling experience for all involved. Throughout his childhood and teenage years, anytime Clark had to make a decision between revenge, anger, selfishness, or forgiveness, compassion, and selflessness, his parents were there to steer him in the right direction. Be that when he was having issues with a bully who was being abused by his father, or when there was a poor harvest and the Kents shared what little they had with those who were less fortunate and had had a worse harvest season. Pa Kent used this to teach Clark that people did want to be good, they just needed someone to follow. They needed an example, and he challenged Clark to be that example every day. Of course, this wasn't an insistence on Clark becoming Superman, but rather an insistence on Clark becoming a good person. Clark would grow up and move to Metropolis, where he became a reporter at the Daily Star, and after doing a great job there, he moved on to the bigger and better things that awaited him at the Daily Planet, where he would meet the one and only Lois Lane. He would, of course, go on to be a founding member of the Justice League of America and become a beacon of hope and good across the entire globe. Superman is, while he's not a character I particularly read a lot about, although for Christmas I got a massive stack of comics, so I will have to read through them at some point. Superman is like, alongside Spider-Man, the epitome of a superhero.
Yes.
You've like, there's going to be some people who are angry because at the beginning there I used the current Superman motto of truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. That never used to be his tagline. His original motto was something like truth, justice, and the American way. And then more recently they were like, yeah. And also part of the problem with that was conservatives and like crazy dangerous conservatives were trying to use that to claim that Superman would be like a Trump supporter.
Yep,
which
I can see that
just wouldn't happen. So that's why that kind of got changed, and I actually prefer it because Superman isn't inherently American. Like, yes, he's from America in the sense he's grown up there, but he's just like, no, we're gonna make people be better. And I think he's a really important character for that because he has the ability to take over the world, take over the governments, and just force and enact his own will. But instead, he's kind of the world's conscience. He turns up when these people have the ability to do something bad and just kind of stares at them and kind of goes, is this actually what you want to do? Because I can stop you, but I don't want to have to stop you. I want you to see the error of your ways.
You're just given now.
Yeah. And I think, like, obviously his big rival is Lex Luthor, who despises him because of the power he has. And a lot of people are like, well, he could just like deal with Lex Luthor once and for all. But the whole point is that would prove Lex right. Because Lex, when he's at his best, is kind of in one of two worlds. He's either hates Superman for not using his powers to be in control, or he doesn't trust that Superman won't one day just
take
decide
over
to be in charge. Which is just so interesting. But like I said, while I don't personally read a lot of Superman, I think he is the quintessential superhero for a lot of people alongside Spider-Man. And I think that is, at its core, the right person alongside Spider-Man to be who you think of when you think of a superhero, because he is good for goodness sake. And while I do enjoy the shows that have got popular using the evil Superman trope, actual evil Superman, I don't enjoy that much. Superman, like Injustice, like, yeah, it's interesting, but I'd much rather Superman be Superman.
Mm,
and then we get the evil Superman idea from your Invincibles and your the boys and stuff like that.
yeah, where they have a bit more fun with the character
Exactly. You can look
development
at
and stuff.
what's different at the core person that makes them evil, rather than going this person has power, therefore they are evil.
Yeah.
Um, what if we
Mm.
discussed the new TV show that's coming out?
And what if the second half was better than the first half?
I was literally about to say that. I look at these 4 episodes and they all hit.
Yeah. I I would say that the second half, like in the last week when we discussed the first half, there was some we liked and some we were like, yeah, they were
Yeah.
okay. They weren't anything. Kind of expected the same, and then I feel like after each one, I was like, that was actually quite good. I enjoyed that one, and there was like there
I
wasn't another so-so one.
I think the weakest for me was the final episode.
Yeah,
I just feel like they didn't have enough fun with it because they painted themselves into a storytelling corner.
yes, I think they could have actually had more fun with the Strange Supreme one if they'd actually just lent more into the prison break sort of situation that happened,
Yeah.
because they gave us glimpses of characters and different versions of things we've not seen before. And it's like you could have had a really fun episode of loads of just cameos, essentially of different
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah, I
Uh,
completely agree. Um, what if Kahori reshapes the world? It's
mm,
such a good episode.
yes, considering it's a brand new
Yes,
character.
completely original character. Um,
Yeah, no,
I really
I enjoyed
enjoyed
that.
it. Um, I'm not sure if we'll get any more of the character outside of just a what if season 3, which I believe has been confirmed.
Yeah, they've teased it, whether it's been like confirmed on Disney's
Officially
end.
greenlit, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I would like to see. You know what? I would like to see this lead to a comic series about the
Yeah, that's
character.
what I was
I
gonna
mean,
say.
I'm talking out my arse. I haven't actually checked that she isn't getting a comic series.
I was gonna say I imagine we'll see her again in her own What If comic run, maybe.
Yes.
Whether she then gets her own
Is
actual, like, this
Kahori
is the canon of
getting a
Kahori.
comic?
Because
Uh, so no, it doesn't look like there is any public plans
hmm,
to give her a comic run yet. I would be very interested in them giving her a comic run.
the question is, so the what if was like, what if the Tesseract ended up on landing on Earth, like the way it did or whatever.
Yeah.
So in theory, normal Kahori wouldn't have got that.
Yes.
But is there a world where there is an actual Kahori with powers?
I mean, here's the thing with what we're building up to in the multiverse saga of incursions, and they're definitely going to
Mm,
use it to bring certain characters in and write out certain characters. They could absolutely use that as a reason to give us a Kahori. They
yeah,
absolutely could.
they could.
If off the back of what if they go, this character's been really well received, people want more of her,
Mm,
let's do it. They absolutely can use that as a way to bring her in without any major issues. But with all of the delays that haven't we don't even know the full extent of yet, the
mm,
recasting of Jonathan Majors or potentially
mm.
moving away from Kang altogether, whatever they decide to do, um, we're not going to see the end of the multiverse saga probably until 2028, maybe even 2029.
Jeez. Yeah,
At which
yeah, you're
point
not wrong.
it's 5, 6 years since you've seen this character once.
Yeah,
They
you're gonna
need to do
care.
something with her
Mm.
in the meantime to make people go, yes, I want more of this. Now, if they decide to do a Marvel Spotlight
I was
series
just gonna say they could do a spotlight show.
about what she's done after What If, or even another alternate version of the character that gets passed but doesn't deal with Supreme Strange,
Mm.
and that does really well, maybe then they go, right, there's been something in the middle that's been well received. We want to bring her into the main continuity. But a very, very interesting character nonetheless.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
and I would like, if there is enough demand for it, and I hope there is enough demand for it, for her to get a comic run, because
Mm.
that is where you can build a fan base that is then gonna push for the
Yeah.
projects. And I also feel like with the Native American history and the art styles that you could do for that, you
Mm.
could have a very nice and unique comic come out of it as well.
Oh yeah, I definitely can see that becoming a potential comic run.
And then we get the episode that when I looked at the list, I was the least interested in,
Yeah, I was
and ended up
unsure.
being like a top 3 episode, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I it didn't click straight away. I was just like, "Ah, this is when Odin just like imprisoned her." And then it
Yeah.
started to click. I was like, "Wait, no, this is 4-1,
Yeah.
but it's Hela." And we've happened to land where the 10 rings are. I
Very,
yeah,
very good.
I really enjoyed it, and I also kind of really enjoyed the character arc they gave Hela.
Yeah.
um,
It was really, really cool. Because at the same, like, the whole point is, in Thor 1, he was banished because of his inadequacies, which
mhm,
were his ego and stuff. For Hela, that was completely different. It was about her lack of care for other beings, which
yeah,
means she had to learn a different lesson to Thor, which
mhm,
meant while there was parallels with Thor 1, they managed to still have a different
different,
learning
yeah,
experience, which is so important for making this still a compelling story. And then you also get the added benefit of, because of what goes on and her interactions with Wenwu,
mm,
Wenwu becomes a force for good and not
yeah,
a force for evil. Um, Going out across the cosmos and, by the looks of it, stopping Thanos before he even starts looking for Infinity Stones.
yeah,
Back when he was doing it planet by planet.
yeah. It was an interesting like change of direction for all those characters involved. Um, but I thought, and I enjoyed how they still, like you say, there was parallels with 4, and obviously we've got like certain moments from Shang-Chi, like the little heffalump looking thing.
Yeah,
Um,
clever.
yeah. So yeah, no, I was pleasantly surprised by the Hella one for
I
sure.
also really enjoyed the art style once she reconvened with her helmet of the all white outfit.
Yes.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Um, then we got the one that I really didn't know what to expect.
Yeah,
What if the Avengers assembled in 1602? It is not good in the same way a lot of these others are good, where they are like quite interesting concepts, and they're like really well told, like the Hela and the Kahori
mm,
stories, which are like really good stories. That
yeah,
I'm almost like, I wouldn't mind seeing an extended version of that where they can flesh it out a bit more.
mm.
But this is good because it's just so much fun.
Yeah. This reminds me of the zombie one from season 1.
Yes, just a lot of fun.
Yeah, just the thematic fun that they had with
Yeah.
it.
Loki being an actor doing Shakespeare, Thor and Hela as like king and queen,
Yeah,
Steve as Robin Hood with like Bucky and
Hawkeye.
Scott as the Merry Men.
Yes,
What I don't understand is why Sam wasn't one of the Merry Men. Like, the
that,
Merry Men's a
yeah,
large group. I don't know why they didn't add Sam in there. Maybe they were worried about too many characters. I don't know.
maybe.
Um, but also like seeing how different alliances landed. Like seeing
Yeah,
Happy being like the horrible boss underneath Thor,
mm.
and Tony being a bit of like a Da Vinci style character.
And Wanda being the classic like medieval king's witch,
Yeah,
dealing with all the mystical things, and then realizing, oh wait, no, you're turning on the king because
yeah.
they don't actually care who's in charge. No, I thought it was very fun, and the D&D nerd in me obviously fully enjoyed
What I will say is I don't think they needed to shoehorn in the connection to Peggy.
Yeah, it was a bit. There was obviously them leading up to this kind of thing where she keeps saving worlds because she knows
Yeah.
it's the right thing to do. And obviously, we had the moment where she did at the end of her one, she disappeared into a pool, and we knew that was obviously all right. This is setting things up. And then yeah, they kind of shoved her in, and then there was the reveal that Steve is also not from
Yeah.
this
He got
planet.
thrown into this world after accidentally hitting Thanos' time stone when he was fighting in
Mm-hmm.
Wakanda, which is an interesting idea.
Yeah, like the
Um,
idea of damaging it and then it throws you off somewhere else.
it just felt like Peggy was only here so that they had an easy way to connect the end of that straight into the finale.
Yes, it did feel that way.
Um,
It was like a stepping stone for the
yes,
finale.
which I do think potentially hurt the story a little bit. But bearing in mind the story wasn't that serious and was more to just be
Mm,
fun and look at all the characters being all silly and medieval, I don't think is the worst one in the world for them to try to shoehorn it into.
yeah, I will say there was one disappointing thing.
Go
I
on.
really wanted Tony at the end to rock up in just a full suit of armor and be Iron Man.
Yes, I was certain because like the one in Iron Man 2 with the briefcase where he suits up
Yeah,
is always like the suit transformation that everyone loves. They're like, oh,
yeah.
it's so cool, and it is fucking awesome. When I saw he made that box, I was like, is he gonna like power it up with the scepter, and then it's gonna be like an Iron Man suit powered by the scepter?
There's just like a
Um,
suit of armor. It would have looked
yeah.
sick.
Um, so I'm a little bit upset he made that, but I also love the idea of Tony just being a bit of a Da Vinci type who just
Yes.
wants the future and wants it now. It's so good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was another decent season.
Yeah.
I think overall, its highs were higher than the first season, and its
Yeah.
lows were lower.
Uh, I'd say the lows felt similar for me.
I think the Iron Man episode is worse than anything we got in the first season.
Hmm. I don't know.
Let me get up the episode list for the first season quickly.
The problem is,
Because
like
I might be forgetting one that's just so bad that I forgot it
season
existed.
one, it's like I remember the highlight fun moments. I don't really remember anything else. So it's like I kind of feel like this is going to be the same. I'll remember the great episodes, but the stuff between I'll be like, meh.
So we had what if Captain Carter was the first Avenger? What if
Yep.
T'Challa became Star Lord? Go with that.
Mm-hmm.
What if the world lost its mightiest heroes? I don't really remember that one.
Yeah, exactly.
What if Doctor Strange lost his heart? We know that one,
Yep.
obviously. What if zombies?
Yep.
What if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark? What if Thor were an only child? Which was like the party one. That was fun.
Mm.
What if Ultron won? And that
Yep.
obviously led into the big one. What if the Watcher broke his oath?
So yeah, I feel like the lows of this will just match up with the lows of the first
Yeah,
season,
that
in
might
that
be
I'll
fair.
just forget about them.
You just remember the
The good,
5 good episodes we get a
yeah,
season. Yeah. I would like them to try some more out there concepts next year. Apparently we missed out on a Spider-Man episode, which I'm gutted about.
that's a shame.
Apparently there's supposed to be a Spider-Man episode that was reportedly similar to a film called A Man of Children or Children of Men or whatever, which, if I'm thinking of the right thing, was a film based on a book about the world basically lost the ability to have children.
Ah,
So, like, the youngest person in the world is this massive celebrity. And I
got
remember
you.
vividly in the film, early on in the film, which obviously was adapted from the book,
Mm-hmm.
the youngest person in the world dies because they're just mobbed and followed wherever they are, and they're like 19 years old.
Mm.
And like no one's been born after them. And then they were stabbed outside a nightclub. So then they were like, and now this is the youngest person in the world, and then overnight this person becomes crazy famous because they're now the youngest person in the world. And then this just standard guy accidentally gets embroiled in like helping to hide this woman who was magically pregnant, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is crazy! The human race is actually going to survive," because it'd been 20 years without a kid being born, so everyone was kind of like, "Yeah, we're still working. Yes, we're still doing the same things we're doing," but everyone's that little bit more depressed because we know we're working for nothing. There's not any family.
That's like an opposite of a book I read when I was younger, which was called Gone. And it was like as soon as you turn 18 and become an adult, all the adults just disappeared. So then it became this thing of like kids
What
were
it's hard
like
to run by
freaking
kids.
out as they were getting close to turning 18 because they didn't know what was going to happen. And I
Crazy.
think like they get to 18 and it's like they just start vanishing. And it's like
Jesus.
I forget how the book ended, but it was obviously them trying to figure out how to stop it. But
But I'm sure we will get a season 3.
yeah,
Um, I hope they give a bit more creative
well,
liberty to the people making it to have a bit of
did
fun.
did you see the little teaser for season 3?
No, where is the little teaser?
I think
Is
I was
that a
on
Twitter
Twitter,
thing,
maybe, or
or
was
is
it
it
on
like hidden
there?
at the very end of the last episode?
No, it might have been on YouTube. Basically, there's a bit of a car chase, and we have in a car the
Oh, season 3 full trailer.
what's it called? Red Guardian and Bucky,
Okay, I'm
but
watching it
it's
now.
Winter Soldier Bucky. And they're obviously in America, and then I'm guessing it's like what if Red Soldier and Winter Soldier teamed up. It
Oh,
looks fun.
looks like they're building to something big there.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's like they're gonna build up to Captain Carter versus the Red Soldier or something.
Yeah. Um. Right. Shall we discuss Aquaman 2?
Yes, which unfortunately I didn't manage to get to go see,
No. So
but
the DCEU has officially passed us by. It's dead.
yeah. I have one question about this
Go on.
film. This is all I care, and this will probably determine if probably how you've received it. Did the child die?
No.
Ah,
And I know, like, there is the soundbite of me going, if they don't kill the kid, I'm going to be disappointed.
yep. That's
And
why I asked.
I am slightly disappointed. My bigger issue is they didn't kill anyone.
Oh, that surprises me.
They made some really interesting decisions that I don't agree with. Overall, I do not think it is a bad film.
Okay,
And as part of my like internal New Year's resolution, I'm trying to
be more positive.
for a long time I have been kind of snobby about superhero nerd content, and I've kind of allowed the outside world's view of, oh, it's superheroes, it's fantasy, it's not actually art, to
Hmm.
just allow me to like palm stuff off and go, it doesn't matter though. And I've now decided, or come to the realization internally, that actually it's all art. Now, there is good art and there is bad art, as always, but everything is art. So you
Mm-hmm.
should look at all of it through that lens.
Mm-hmm.
In that respect, there are some brilliant decisions.
Okay.
I view this film as a less extreme version of what The Flash was.
Okay.
In the sense of there is a genuinely, I mean, in the Flash case, there was a genuinely great film hidden behind that, and they made decisions that ruined it.
Yeah.
I think in this situation, there was a genuinely good film hidden in there,
Hmm.
and they made decisions that made it average, maybe just below average.
Right. Okay.
As again, big issue with CGI in places.
That doesn't surprise me.
So there are obviously you're gonna have a difficult time when a lot of the film is underwater with the
Yeah.
hair, and
Yeah.
like you can accept that. And there's lots of times where the hair is out, and you can see where it becomes CGI.
Yeah.
That wasn't bad. That wasn't that bad. There are also some times where it genuinely felt like I could draw a line on their forehead, where their forehead goes from actual forehead
To
into
see.
CGI. And that was more noticeable. And the problem was really noticeable when it would go from the line being somewhere on the hair to being on the forehead, right next to each other. Like it cuts from one to the other. And then all of a sudden you're like, their forehead didn't look like that literally 2 seconds ago. There was also a couple of scenes where entire characters were fully CGI for no real reason.
Okay.
So coming in the third act, when they're coming up to the big battle, they're entering underwater into the big temple, and you've got the big crab dude from one of the other kingdoms, and he's like ordering his armies. And as he's doing that, Orm and Aquaman swim in, and Orm, for some reason, even though you get a full shot of his face, is 100% fully CGI.
Weird.
And I'm kind of like, you either need to just not have him in that shot because he isn't essential for that shot, or you should have got the footage of the actual actor because it was really noticeable. And when a film's been waiting around this long, spend the money to have them go back over it and get it as high quality as it can be.
I wonder if some of that has come down to, we know there's been several different versions of like chopped in, stuff taken out.
Yeah.
Like it's obviously probably come about a bit of, we now want this shot, but we don't have the like make do. Especially some of the, like the CGI with like face on CGI about it. That's just composition time, like not the time for them to do a proper polished job, which is a shame. But doesn't surprise me because, like you say, a lot of this is underwater. There's going to be a lot of CGI to make this work, which is where a lot of probably their time was spent. And compositing was probably unfortunately on the back burner a lot of the time.
But the positives.
Okay.
Aquaman's suit looked fucking awesome.
Nice.
Aquaman and Orm, or Ocean Master's interactions, very, very good. I enjoyed it. It had the seriousness and the comedy balance that we've come to expect from a superhero film down to a T.
Nice.
Very, very good. And the action sequences, for the most part, were tight as fuck.
Okay.
Which we've come to expect from James Wan.
Yeah.
The downsides.
Okay.
They, and I do not use this word lightly, they pussied out of killing characters off on 3 separate occasions. So the overarching story, so that I can add context to each of the situations, is Aquaman is now the king, and he's got a young baby. He is struggling to balance everything, and he feels like he is, pardon the pun, drowning. But he still loves everything and is giving it his all. He just feels a bit lost. He thought when he took on the role of being king, he'd be able to make decisions to change policy and maybe bring Atlantis to the surface and open up lines of communication to make the world a better place. But there's a council and they keep shooting that decision down. And he's losing their trust and this, that, and the other. Then we cut away. Oh, I've lost audio. Un momento. I'll be back in 2 seconds. I know you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
So we then see Black Manta, who's been on an expedition since the end of the first film. To try and find the necessary materials to fix his suit so that he can get revenge and kill Aquaman.
Right.
Cool. In this process, they find remains of the Lost Kingdom, which was the previous kingdom of Atlantis, which had been struck from the records and made a secret.
Right, okay.
Down there is where he finds the Black Trident, which has got like the psyche of the evil king trapped inside of it. And this gives him secrets and enhances his strength and yada, yada, yada.
Got you.
As part of that, he finds out about this ancient fuel
Right.
that was used by the Atlanteans millennia ago, but they stopped using because it was destroying the Earth.
Oh.
Imagine super fossil fuels. They don't even actually burn anything other than the Earth's atmosphere, like kind of bad.
Oh, okay.
And the lost city we find out is called Necropolis. They're zombie king, zombie people.
Yep. Yep.
Lots of death. Very inventive.
Necro.
And basically, they're just going around grabbing all of this old fuel that they couldn't destroy because of how dangerous it was. So they just locked in these big vaults and they just knew we don't touch it. Cool. Unfortunately, that means it wasn't particularly guarded.
Yeah.
So we have there's a meme on the internet about a 6-month time jump.
Okay.
They avoid falling into that trap, and I don't know if it's because they know the meme would hit them. They chose 5 months. So then it cuts to 5 months later, and there's reports all over the news about the climate change is out of control. It's really, really bad. So they've been going around to all these places, stealing the fuel and just burning it. Not using it, just burning it.
Oh, okay.
Because Manta is so under the influence of this king's psyche. Yep. And then they attack the last one, which is hidden under Atlantis.
Got you.
So they try and sneak in there to get the last of it. It goes a little bit wrong. Alarms go off, and that leads to our first proper fight.
Yep.
And during this fight, Manta uses his laser beam eyes in his helmet and shoots Mera in the chest point blank. She looks basically dead.
Okay.
And obviously there's controversy around Mera being in this anyway because of the actress.
Yep.
And I can definitely see that this was a change made because of that controversy, and this is how they reduced her role in the film. But they could have very easily just killed her off. Do you want to know why I think they pussied out of it on that occasion? Because this is still in the first act, and the second act is like the buddy road trip adventure of Ocean Master and Aquaman. And I can imagine they were like, his wife has just died who he loves. He's not going to be cracking jokes with his brother who he doesn't get on with.
Yeah.
So like, I do kind of get that. It just felt a bit, because they didn't really explain how they saved her either. It was just charred, burnt fuck, look dead, and then she's in a water floaty hospital bed with bandages on. Just to show that she's out of action.
Yeah.
But like, not really describe more than that. So then they go about their business, they do whatever they're doing. And then we get to the bit where we find out about the ancient city.
Right.
We find out what happened, and that King Attla, had imprisoned their evil king with some blood magic.
Right, okay.
To freeze it all up and stop anyone from ever finding it. And then the kingdom was stricken from all the records, so no one would ever even know it existed, so that no one could go and try and find it.
Yep.
And they're like, right, well, yeah, they're heating up the planet, and we need to stop that, and that will melt the ice, but that won't free the king because of the magic.
Right.
They will need some of King Atla's blood to free the magic, which obviously they don't have.
Yep.
Except Aquaman and Ocean Master are both part of that bloodline. Because their mother is.
Yep.
So they're like, well, there's the three of us and we're all here, so it's fine. And then Aquaman goes, no, we're not the end of the bloodline. Because obviously Ocean Master doesn't really know he's had a kid yet.
Right.
So then they go, oh shit, and they all race back to the house, and it's on fire, which we saw in the trailer.
Yep.
And his dad has been stabbed and is bleeding out and is dying. And
Doesn't die.
This is the one bit where I like really almost lost it. And I don't know if it's because I've been watching a lot of Family Guy recently. But the dad is on the floor, bleeding out, and he goes, Manta took the baby. Yeah. And you get Nicole Kidman's character go, oh no, or goes, no. And then you hear Mera in the background go, no. And then you have Aquaman go, no! Literally like that, back to back.
Yeah.
And I genuinely looked around because I was expecting the fucking Kool-Aid guy to kick the wall in. Because it just felt so weird for three characters, not in unison, but strictly one after another, to all scream no in increasing intensities.
Weird.
And then he didn't die. They just bandaged him up and saved him.
Do you know what I think they did this? Because it's the end, and they didn't want to kill off a bunch of people, and that's it.
No, but that's one of them, like, I'm not being funny. If you are cast to play the parent or father figure of a superhero,
Yeah, you expect to die.
you've got to expect to die. It was like I like, even though I wanted them to kill off the child and have the balls, I didn't think they would. But I was like, if they're not going to do that, his dad is definitely going to die. Like, that has to be done. And they didn't do it.
Mm.
And it's not like he ended up being a massive part of the plot afterwards, because he doesn't have superpowers. He's a normal human dude. He didn't go to help in the final fight scene. He wasn't there to be babysitter for the baby anymore because the baby had been kidnapped.
It's, yeah, weird decisions.
So, like, the mirror one, I kind of understand there was a plot reason to not do it. But after that, it's serious because he's hunting down for his baby.
Yeah.
So there's not much joking after that anyway. So it's not like they needed to keep the ability to make jokes or anything.
Mm.
Another highlight, which I did forget to mention, Randall Park is in it.
Okay.
As like a henchman who ends up mutinying against Manta. And he's very, very good.
Cool.
He does a very, very good job. He's like Manta's chief science officer.
Right.
And his entire motivation is he wants to see Atlantis. That's it.
Okay.
And then as Manta goes from I want revenge to I'm going to melt the entire world, he kind of goes, this isn't really what I signed up for. I just wanted to see Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to help you literally ruin the world for the rest of the time. So he ends up like saving the baby and helping out, blah, blah, blah. Overall, the film's like, it's okay. There is a better film there if they make a couple of different decisions. I'm not saying killing the baby makes the film better. Killing the dad does make the film better. It adds a bit more emotion to it. Because Manta's entire thing is he hates Aquaman because Aquaman left his dad to die. That's his motivation for wanting Aquaman dead. Aquaman stopped them when they were pirating a ship.
Yeah.
He injured his dad, left him to die. And Manta then had to escape and leave his dad there to die.
Yeah.
It would have been a very full circle moment and showing why the hero is better than the bad guy if the bad guy also killed his father, and then instead of going, no, I have to kill you now, he went, no, I'm just going to try and stop you.
Yeah.
The only person they kill off is Manta. So after the evil king obviously gets freed, they defeat the evil king in a very anticlimactic fight. And that starts causing the underground castle to collapse.
Right.
And you get cracks happening, and Manta falls in a hole. And Aquaman goes to help him. He's like, come on, let's get out of here. And Manta just goes, never, and then just lets go and falls into the pit.
So he's not technically dead.
Yeah, no, you didn't see him hit the ground, so technically he could still be alive. However, the film is not.
The franchise is dead, so
yeah, the universe doesn't exist, so it'd be impressive. Overall, it was okay. It wasn't great. They weren't brave enough. That's gonna be the thing I'm looking for in superhero films now. After spending a year sat here going, films aren't as enticing to the big audiences as they used to be. They have to be enticing to them by lowering the entry. And I know, like, we're all about lowering the entry and not trying to gatekeep superhero films. But if the people who make these films gross $2 billion aren't turning up anymore, tell a fucking story then.
Well, it's not even that. It's just like we said it with Ant-Man. Like, if you're not gonna kill off characters, that's fine, but don't make the audience feel like you are going to. Like, don't tell the story in such a way that it feels like this character's about to die and then they don't, because the audience notices that. And like you're saying here, there's multiple times where it's like, oh, this person's going to die. Oh, they didn't. Okay, so why did you tell it in such a way? I feel like maybe with Aquaman, with the different cuts and reshoots and different things that they did and changes, and then finding out, okay, we are the end of the DCU, maybe they were just like, let's not kill anyone off. Let's just end it with
Yeah.
everyone's alive and happy ever after. Boom, boom, boom.
What I will say that I did really enjoy the because like although there is just one big story, there is obviously like subplots.
Mm,
The subplot of Aquaman and Ocean Master, who are brothers who grew up disliking each other,
mm-hmm.
and then they came to a head despite never really knowing each other because they assumed the other one was wrong. And then
Yep.
Aquaman won, and he went to prison, and then he broke him out of prison to help him with this quest to
Yep.
save the planet. It was very good the way they improved their relationship because Aquaman's main motivation for why he wanted to do this stupid, reckless, dangerous thing was he was bored and stuck and didn't know what to do. So he wanted to do what he knows he's good at, which is punching indoors.
Yeah, fair.
And he wanted someone he felt was smart to help, which is
Mm,
Ocean Master. And it's crazy because you can see the insecurity of both characters. Aquaman's insecurity about being a good leader, and Ocean Master's insecurity about being not strong enough to lead.
yeah.
And then it ends with this beautiful bit of obviously the other kingdoms still want Ocean Master back in prison.
Yeah.
So the people who helped win were kind of like, it's a real shame you died in there saving the kingdoms. As if to go be free.
Yeah.
No one needs to know. You've earned your freedom. To which he then says to Aquaman, he's like, you need to trust your gut. I know you've said you don't think you know what you're doing. You're doing pretty good. Just trust your gut.
Mm,
And it was nice to see them come back together as brothers and be the thing they both wanted a brother to be, but didn't realize their brother could be.
yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like, I feel like all of the DC films this year, Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman, have nailed the bit that historically I thought has been lacking in superhero films of giving it a lot of heart.
Mm,
And then they mess. Oh, I mean, Blue Beetle didn't mess up anything, in my opinion. But Flash and Aquaman then mess up the stuff around it.
yeah. Make it weird.
Yeah, and I'm like, if you get the bit that used to be the easy bit right, these are really really good films. Um, I think it is the most fitting end to the DCEU I could describe. It is. I see what you were trying to do there, but you
Mm,
missed it by that much.
yeah, that kind of sums up the DCU. We saw what you were trying to
Exactly.
do and you missed it.
Yeah.
We're starting again.
But it's not a film I'm gonna be leaping and dying to watch again. But bearing in mind how little I was looking forward to it,
Mm,
I also don't regret watching it. So
yeah.
take that as you take it. I mean, it's been 96 episodes of me giving my opinion. If you can't use that to work out if you want to go see it or not yet, I don't know what to tell you. Do you know what I was excited to watch this week though? Horizontal.
What was that?
Percy Jackson.
Yes.
This show is rent free in my fucking brain. Every Wednesday I wake up and I'm like, I get to watch that later. I can't wait.
It's good. It's good. It's real good.
It was another really good episode.
Yeah. It's
This one felt a touch short. I don't think it was any
it,
shorter, but it felt a touch
I
short.
think it was a little bit shorter.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a little bit of a shorter one. But I don't think that hurt it.
No.
It was still a great episode. I'm loving how they're doing a real well, obviously in the books it obviously does a good job, but they've adapted it well and it feels like kids traveling across America. Like it whereas obviously the films old films did not. Um
I
it's
like I said, I remember the film pretty vividly. I'm 99% sure that this entire episode was cut from the film version.
probably
I
or they
don't
did it in a
remember them
different
being in St. Louis or dealing with a chimera or anything like that.
possibly. Um
Um,
but I really enjoyed how the kind of trio is developing. and they are slowly um becoming closer. And also then you got Percy being like, yeah, you don't have to the gods don't have to be how you're saying the god, like they aren't all these all powerful, like perfect things. You're just presuming they are, but they don't have to be.
Their discussion regarding um Annabeth's feelings towards Athena and
Mm,
Percy's towards Poseidon was really interesting because it can so easily be applied to actual religion.
yeah,
It's like, yes, you believe in your mother, which is obviously a god,
yep,
in that she cares for you and she wants the best for you and she's going to help you, and that is fine.
mm,
I don't believe in my father to do that for me,
yeah,
um, and you need to accept that as well. And it's really interesting how that comes together. And like in earlier episodes when they kind of mentioned it, you can tell both of them were a little bit, oh well, good for you.
yeah,
Um, Whereas in this one, you can see they're both a bit more respect for the other ones. She's like, I understand why you felt like your father's done nothing for you, and he's like,
mm,
and I understand why you believe your mother is looking out for you
yeah,
because if you have no reason to think that she isn't, why would you choose to think she isn't?
yeah.
Um, I think Grover is
Me in the mornings.
due a big moment. I don't know like the story well enough to know, but I feel
Mm,
like next episode we're getting a big Grover moment.
yeah, I feel like definitely with the talk of they become seekers or whatever to go find
Yeah.
um there's definitely going to be some sort of like step up for him that kind of obviously clearly is going to be him leading towards that future path.
Well, yeah, because like while this quest is a quest to get back the Master Bolt, they're all kind of on their own quest.
Yes.
Grover is out to right the wrongs of what led to Talia's demise because
Mm,
he failed in that situation and that clearly haunts him.
yeah.
Annabeth's out to prove that she is a hero and to win the love of her mother.
Mm-hmm.
And Percy's out to find his mother, bring her home
Yeah.
safely, and just kind of hopefully wake up and move on from this weird situation he's found himself in.
Yeah.
Um, One thing I did find out from the Percy Jackson superfans on TikTok, shout out to them dudes. Um, the bit where he falls from the arch
Mm.
has been a big problem in lore for a long time.
Oh.
So, in the book, when he falls, it's never explained how he ends up in the water
Oh.
because Rick Riordan thought the water was super close to the arch and
Ah.
therefore didn't need to explain it. Which is why the film didn't touch upon this episode at all. Because they're like, how the fuck do we explain that? So apparently, the fan theory for a long time has been Poseidon just picks him out of the air and pulls him into the water. And
So
that is kind of what they
yeah.
chose to do in the show.
So
They've kind of gone, yeah, the fans worked out a good excuse. We'll do that.
the hole appeared and I'm like, he's going out this hole. And I was like, either some mythical winged thing is going to grab him out the sky and is a friendly and help them out in that sense. Or I was like, as he's like hanging there, I was looking down. I'm like, is there any water? Like, is he gonna suddenly like his powers to control the water suddenly like ignite and he can catch himself with like strands of water or something? And then obviously you get the flipping camera and you just see like a fast motion blur of this just whirlwind of water just grabbing
Yeah.
him. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Um,
I kind of had like the whole oh shit he's gonna breathe underwater when they're just like calm down, breathe, and I'm like wait he's gonna realize he's like yeah breathing underwater is fine.
yeah. The symmetry with the episode starting of him kind of being a bit apprehensive to swim in the water
Yes,
and then
if only
culminating
he'd
in the
known.
breathing underwater. It's just so beautiful. And like that, this is going to be the big difference with my way I'm looking at shows this year. I'm looking for the beauty and the fun little parallels in shows now.
Yeah.
As long as there's not a massive hole that I have an issue with, I couldn't care less. Just make me go, wow, that's really cool.
Mm.
Um, I loved so much about it. The interactions this week were really good. The
Yeah.
notion of the different views of the temple as well. To the
Mm.
human world, it's just the big
Yeah, it's just an
thing
arch.
in St. Louis. And then Grover's angry because of all of the animal like bones and stuff that are in there
Yeah.
because animals have been hurt.
Yeah.
And then Annabeth's like, no, it doesn't matter what's in it. The structure is the temple because it's so beautifully balanced and using equal forces to hold each other together. It's the perfect arch, which is
Hmm.
why it's a temple to my mother. And Percy's there just like, it's just someplace monsters aren't. I couldn't care less.
Yeah. And then turns out monsters can be because he sent a head up to the gods.
Yeah, and this is another thing. It's the foreshadowing in the previous episode, isn't it? It's
Mm.
you can't send this to Mount Olympus. They're not going to like it. And Percy's like, who gives a fuck?
That's
What have
my
they done
name on
for
it.
us?
They won't do anything. And then
Yeah,
it's like him now realizing, oh, they don't care. They'll punish all of us because we're together. Like realizing that they are, if anything, fueling him more that he thinks they're dicks.
I think these kind of instances are what's going to turn Percy from feeling like he's all alone in the world to being a bit more caring towards his counterparts. Because right now, yes, he
Yes.
does care for them and he doesn't want them to get hurt. But he doesn't necessarily like them. He's just like, you're here because you have to be. But now
Yeah.
seeing the Annabeth, who feels like she had a close relationship with her mother's now letting monsters in to potentially kill her because of what he did.
Mm.
He's like, oh, I don't like that. I feel bad.
I think, yeah, I do. I agree. I think he's going to become more on just like, oh, I'm a demigod. As like we stick together. Fuck the gods. Fuck everyone else. It's like we're hated for what we are, and then he, like you said, going to care more for his fellow peers. But
I
I mean,
can't wait. I can't wait for season 2 where Percy Jackson turns into Kratos and just kills all of the gods. That's how the books go, right? He just turns into Kratos.
just starts collecting their heads on his belt,
Yeah, yeah, that'd be sick.
walking around America. Just yeah.
But I mean, I'm enjoying this show so much. It's a big departure from a lot of the other stuff we cover.
Mm.
We've got like Lord of the Rings stuff we cover, which is very high fantasy. We've got our superhero stuff, which is different to this. This is proper mythology in the modern world. How does it work? The discussions about the centaurs running free and how there used to be loads of them, but now there isn't. It's just,
Mm.
I'm really, really enjoying it, and I cannot wait for the next episode. Literally every week.
Do you know what? I am intrigued, and this is a So I've said every time I've talked, I don't really remember the films. I saw a
Yep.
thing on TikTok that jogged the biggest memory.
Okay.
The
Which?
Lotus Casino thing.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
And it's
It's gonna be
like
so
that. I
cool.
saw someone say, I can't wait to see how they do this in the TV show. And I was like, wait, that was Percy Jackson. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I am also now very intrigued to see how 3 kids go to a casino and what
Well,
happens.
I mean, it does kind of work because the whole idea is everyone's so like out of it there, they don't care.
Yeah.
But it's still going to be so cool. Because I like, even though I see why the mega fans had an issue with the film now, and I see
Mm.
how much worse it is now that I see how good the show
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
The casino scenes were still really well put together and really cool. So I'm really curious to see how that progresses and like how awesome they make that.
Yeah.
Because it's not like they're working on a shoestring budget here or trying to do anything on the cheap. They're
No.
they're going, this is what we want to do, and they're not trying to overspend or underspend. They're like, this is what we want to do. How do we do it?
Yeah.
And I think it's really, really gonna lead to some very cool stuff with some of the stuff we've definitely got left to come.
Agreed.
2023 is behind us.
It is.
So I think it's only fair we look back on the year of 2023.
Yes.
and have a little discussion
It's been.
about the good, the bad, the ugly, and then look forward.
It feels like it's been a long year, but yet
It does.
looking back, it feels like things were so long ago. But then the year itself felt like it went by quick.
Yeah, I feel like when you think about 2023, it does feel both shorter and longer. Because I
Mm,
wouldn't have said that we've only just started or ended the second year of doing this.
yeah,
Like the beginning of 2023 was 1 year of doing it.
yeah, and it feels like ages ago.
And it doesn't feel like that was a year ago. It feels like we're entering like year 4.
Yeah,
It's definitely been a year of two halves. Which I think is why I forgot about some of the things that I've ended up putting in this list. Um, but we had some good TV this year.
we did have some good TV.
I battled so much on this because I kept on forgetting some of the TV shows we had.
I picked my answer immediately and I stuck with it. And I probably have
I
forgot stuff, but I'm not wavering.
so I believe, although I can't remember if it overlaps slightly, we started the UN Mando season 3.
I think
Or it
so.
might have been back end of last year, beginning of this year. We had Gen V, we had Secret Invasion, we had
Mhm,
Loki, we had
mhm,
Ahsoka,
mhm.
we had a lot. We had Bad Batch season 3,
Yes,
season 2,
season 2.
um, season 2. We had a lot.
Mm.
What would you say was your highlight shows
Oh,
wise of 2023?
so my immediate, and I will stick with this because this is obviously why it was immediate, but Ahsoka takes the cake for the year. Like, I love that show. I'm big on my Star Wars, and that ticked so many boxes.
So I started with Ahsoka as my choice,
I
and
have
then I
honorable
remembered
mentions.
Loki.
Yeah, see, I have Loki as a honorable because obviously it's like it was great, and from a place where we weren't that confident in MCU shows, it surprised us and it was stellar. But I'm a Star Wars.
Yeah.
I can't not be Ahsoka.
But neither of them ended up winning for me.
Oh,
I think the award for me has to go to Gen V.
interesting.
I think it was an absolute revelation of a show that managed to do just as well and entertain me just as much as the other two without anywhere near as much hype.
Yeah, I can understand that. I also have an honorable mention for The Bear season 2, which is that chef show that I
Yeah,
think I briefly mentioned.
it's on mine and Jenna's list to get around and catch up on it, and at some point in 2024 we might. Who knows?
Yeah.
What was the lowest of the low for you though,
So
TV show wise?
yeah, trying to remember like
Trying to remember the bad is actually really difficult.
yeah, because it's also really hard to like find like trying to get a comprehensive list of what everything that came out and making sure I'm not thinking of something that came out in like 2022. Hard when it's like something bad because it's not on any list. um, but I have gone Secret Invasion. I think purely because of how kind of disappointing of an end it was. We There was a lot of potential there for something cool, and it just didn't deliver. Um, Also, not like there wasn't a huge amount of shows really that I was like, oh, these are terrible
Yeah,
this year.
I completely agree. I think we either had a lot of good and a lot of average.
Hmm.
Secret Invasion was okay at the beginning. It
Yeah.
went downhill, and then it had what we agreed was the worst MCU TV show ending, which is saying something because our biggest complaint for every show other than Loki has been the finale.
Yeah.
So for me, it had to take the bottom spot. We overlooked a lot of stuff early on, but it just didn't resolve enough of the stuff, and it all just
Yeah.
wasn't what it could have been.
There's a lot
And
of
it was
setup and
quite
not no
disappointing.
payoff.
Exactly, exactly. And it took Maria Hill from us for no fucking reason.
Yeah.
Um, We had a decent year with films though. I feel like
We
films was
did.
very extreme. They were either very good or very bad. I feel like there wasn't a lot of bang average this year.
I'm struggling on this. I
Yeah,
have a triple threat
you have a
of
triple threat. I managed to get it down to 2, but I
I
might have just forgotten something.
I could probably get it down to 2, but it's difficult. For sure, Across the Spider-Verse or Into the
Yeah,
Spider-Verse. Is it Into?
cross.
No, it is Across.
No, it's
Into's the next.
into.
I can't remember.
No, next one's into.
Is next one Into? So it is Across, yeah.
No,
Oh,
into was the first one. Across was the second one. The third one is beyond.
okay, yeah. So Across.
Across the Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse. That is for sure there. Like that film, we both loved it so much. It is everything we could love Spider-Man film, and the animation is flawless. But then I've kind of got another 2 that I'm struggling. I probably would lean more one way than the other, but I have Guardians 3, Guardians of the
Okay.
Galaxy 3, purely because of like the wrap up of that trilogy, and then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was a banging film,
Yeah.
great film, but it's very
So
difficult.
I narrowed it down to me to Guardians 3 and Spider-Verse.
I think that's where I lean also.
But I went Guardians over Spider-Verse for one reason and one reason alone.
Okay.
Guardians 3 had a complete story that ended, and it
Yeah.
ended a trilogy, and it was beautiful and well put together and told not just an overall compelling story, but
Mm.
really beautiful stories around Peter and Rocket,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Whereas Spider Verse is the middle of a trilogy. It was, while it's still a very good film, it's not a self-contained story. You've got the
Mm-hmm.
sequel coming that is going to then wrap it all up. And for that, I think Guardians 3 for me is
I can
better.
understand.
But if we were just going like pound for pound, what do I think like is going to end up being the better trilogy? I think Spider Verse beats the Guardians trilogy.
Yeah, I think so too.
But when you're comparing 2 films from a trilogy, I feel like second is always going to lose to first or third, just because of the nature of what the second film in a trilogy normally is.
I get that.
Worst film I'm going to imagine is pretty easy for both of us.
Yeah, go on.
The Flash.
Yep, The Flash.
Yeah. It still upsets me. I wanted this film to be so good so badly. I think it has really hurt our chances to get a Flash film for a long time. There was a great film hidden there that they chose not to make.
Yeah, they just fumbled.
Yeah, it hurts,
Though
man.
I'm just thinking of something that might also be up there that we may have
Go on.
forgotten. Was Shazam
Shazam
2023?
was this year.
That was also pretty bad.
The only difference with that is I wasn't as disappointed by it
True.
because I didn't expect as much from it.
Yeah, I can understand that.
It might be as bad a film, but I was expecting an 8 out of 10 for The Flash and end up being a 1, whereas for Shazam I was hoping for a 6 and I got a 1.
Yeah. I think also it speaks a lot when Flash is what our brains went to as the worst, and I didn't even think about Shazam.
Yeah.
It clearly shows that Flash left more of a mark.
Yeah. Shazam is, I think Shazam's biggest crime is how forgettable it is.
Yeah. And they tried to shoehorn it so hard into the DCU.
Yeah. Now, but on to better news. And this is where I do have a real tough time.
Oh.
Biggest pleasant surprise. What did you go and see this year and you went, I am really glad that we decided to go see this?
So I have Gen V for this.
Okay, cool. I didn't even think of shows, and if I had of Gen V probably would have been in the list. I was thinking purely films.
So
okay, so you got Gen V down for this.
yeah,
That is
pure.
based.
purely because it's like also the start of this year, I hadn't even watched The Boys.
Exactly.
So
This
it's
has been
like
a big undertaking
when
for
you
you.
mentioned Gen V, I'm like, okay, it looks interesting. Haven't watched any of the, and I binged through The Boys straight into Gen V, and it was like, this was really good. Like and considering it was a spin-off, often spin-offs can kind of flop a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But Gen V stood on its own, and I was very surprised, and also pleasantly surprised by the whole Boys franchise that I've now got into.
Yeah. No, it's based. So I have a three-way tie, and I genuinely
Oh,
cannot split
freeway
it here.
tie. Okay.
I've got Blue Beetle.
Yeah, I can see that.
I've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Mm,
Because while we saw the trailer and knew it was going to be good, we didn't
yeah,
know the film was happening until early this year.
true.
Like, it all happened very fast.
That is a good point.
And Barbie.
Fair.
I knew I was going to go watch it. I was mildly excited. Barbie was a fucking brilliant film that I really, really enjoyed. And that was I was expecting to enjoy it. I didn't expect to like get on the Barbenheimer train, do Barbenheimer, and love every second of it as much as I did.
Mm, yeah,
Um,
fair.
I genuinely can't pick. I don't think I can give it to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Again, it's being snubbed, but because when we saw the trailer, I knew it was going to be good.
I see off your list and thinking about it, I probably would say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles if I was to pick a film, purely off the fact that we didn't know anything about it and it came out of
Yeah,
nowhere and surprised us in that sense.
yeah.
But I can understand what you mean. Like we knew it was going to be
Whereas
good.
Blue Beetle, in the situation it was in, how delayed it
Mm.
had been, blah 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 blah. I still can't believe how good a film that is. The fact that it is didn't or hasn't done as well as Aquaman and stuff is criminal.
Well, this is why I have it as my biggest underperformer.
Really?
Well, that and I have one DC and one MCU.
Okay, I have the Flash as the biggest underperformer
Oh, so
because I was expecting such great things.
I have the Marvels and Blue Beetle because
Oh,
I looked
you're talking purely financially. Got
well
ya.
and reception like yes, we love both the films, but like they weren't these huge hits that I feel like they should have been. Like I
They were
think
definitely underappreciated for the
yes,
majority of fans.
so that's why I've got like Marvels and Blue Beetle, both really
Yeah.
good films, and didn't show in their numbers made, unfortunately.
Yes. I think a lot of much worse films than the Marvels and Blue Beetle have made a
Mm.
lot more money. And
Yes,
I think they just came out in a
Fast and
year that
Furious.
really hurt them. And it would be remiss of us to not point out the obvious that in a year where people are trying to accuse everything of being woke, that
Mm.
the film starring a Latin character,
Mm.
sorry, a Latina character, um, Latino, because he's a man, and a film with a trilogy of women of different races as the main characters, for some reason, despite being brilliant, underperformed, is a problem.
Mm.
And I need people to get their head out of their arse because we're letting good films flop, and it's going to mean that they don't know how to make good films soon.
Yeah.
Now, this is an interesting one. This next one I've thrown in here,
Mm.
because so far it's just been kind of opinion based. But actually, we'll save the next one for last because it makes more sense.
Okay.
What are you most hyped for in 2024?
I have two things.
Okay.
Both happen to be shows. One is
Okay.
Star Wars Acolyte.
Okay.
Very excited to see where that goes because that has the potential to open Star Wars up to more than just this whole Skywalker era.
Yeah.
And then The Boys. Very excited for the next
Okay.
season of The Boys.
Awesome. I also have two.
Mm?
One of mine is also the Acolyte.
No, okay.
Because back when all that Star Wars stuff got announced and we saw the Acolyte, me and you both went, I don't know what that is, but that title makes me feel some kind of way.
Yeah.
It feels like a really like we know it's set back in the past. is going to be. I've got a feeling it's going to be very, very good, and I cannot wait for it.
Mm.
The other one is Joker, A Folie à Deux.
Ah.
I over the last kind of 6 months, I've kind of, and I think I've made it pretty well known, kind of gone. I want superhero films to try and do batshit
Yeah.
stuff. I want them to try and be more creative, be more colorful. People are claiming they're getting bored of it. Like I said, the people who made the Avengers films and Spider-Man No Way Home $2 billion films aren't turning up anymore.
Mm.
So try some creative shit and let it be art again.
Yeah.
I think comic books, although yes, they do have their formulas, are like a very true art form. It's good versus bad. You can make it simple as you want. You can make it as complex as you want, but it is like a really pure art form. And the
Mm.
films aren't conveying that super well anymore. They're
Yeah.
worrying too much about the commercialism and how do we turn this into a million more films.
Yeah.
And I'd like them to focus on telling a story first and then worrying about how they connect later. And I think a musical
Oh,
was
you cut
could
out
be.
slightly there, but
Oh, I think a musical set in Arkham Asylum with Lady
mm.
Gaga as Harley Quinn, after how artistic and good the first Joker film was.
Mm.
It could be hit, it could be miss. I'm excited for it because it's
Yeah.
going to be different.
Oh yeah, that's like it's gonna be. They're trying something, so it's like you can't fault
Exactly,
them for trying something different.
exactly. Even if I don't like it, I'm going to turn up and I'm going to pay my money and I'm going to go watch it because they tried something. And if nothing else, I want to show my support for creative people being
Yes.
allowed to try stuff.
Yeah.
Now, resolutions for 2024.
Now.
I thought this would be just a kind of fun area to talk about because, like I've kind of really accidentally mentioned, because just the way running order works, I'm going to try and change how I like view the content we're talking about instead of just like, oh, this means this and this means this. Like, how do I view it as art?
Mm.
I was wondering if there was anything you would like to throw in there. I have a couple of bits as well, but is there anything you're trying to focus on this year?
I mean, personally, for me, I want to go back to doing my own content, which I've talked to you and Josh about.
The
But
boys.
I mean, podcast wise, and in terms of all this, I mean, I think this year I finally got caught up on shows that people have obviously been telling me to, but I've like been a classic, my stubborn, so I'll get to it. But I think I'm learning my lesson. I do just need to. People are like often things for this. Like I should get around to watching these shows quicker, or making more of an effort to expand into like watching other stuff. So probably doing that going into the new year.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, when we started this way back when, we both kind of said this will be the content we make sure we don't stop. This will be the thing we
Yes.
turn up, rain or shine, and do. And then we both know we can flit in and out of doing our own stuff when it feels right and when we have the extra energy and
Mm.
motivation for it. But it keeps us always in that content mindset so that when we have that bit of extra energy and we're feeling a bit inspired, we can then
Yeah.
go and do our other stuff on the side as well. So it's good because it's working. You've had something to do, and
Yeah.
now you're like, I'm ready to do my own stuff again, and you can go and do that on the side as well. Mine, the ones I've got written down are podcast focus.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we've got like our shorts nailed on how we want to do them and stuff like that, I want to get back to getting our content back on all platforms regularly.
Mm-hmm.
We have tried and failed to do this a million times of making sure they're going up on Instagram Reels and TikToks. And
So
I get
difficult
really
though.
good at doing it for like 4 weeks straight, and then we have a bad week or we need to try and change something or whatever. I'm like,
Mm.
this is a ball ache again. We've got it in a manageable spot right now. So once again, gonna headbutt the wall. We're gonna see if I can get it to do it. The other thing that I've not really tried before, but I've said about doing before, I have lots of opinions. And you'd think with that I'd be better at Twitter than I am, but I'm terrible at Twitter because I sit there and I have my thought in my head and I just don't tweet it.
Mm.
I'm just gonna start tweeting shit. I did one literally earlier today I'm gonna start scrolling on Twitter, and when I see stuff that normally I would just save as like a tiny little bit that I mentioned in the news,
Mm.
I'm just gonna quote retweet it from the Twitter account straight away.
Yeah, that's something that has throughout this whole last year has always played on my mind that I'm like, I should make more of an effort with our Twitter. Because there's been odd little occasions where I've had like the idea to do a meme or to interact with something, and I'm like, I've gone and done the tweet, and I'm like, I just need to do that more. Because there's been a
Yeah,
few times where I'm like, I could make a funny meme for Custody Convos, and then it's like I get distracted and don't do it.
yeah. So that's something I want to focus on this year. When I'm sitting there and I'm scrolling and I'm seeing these conversations that we talk about every week, like I see on
Mm,
Twitter, that are like 30-second things we don't need to really talk about on the podcast, but I've held on to that opinion
yes.
instead of saving it for a tiny little bit that gets forgotten about in the grand scheme of the podcast. I'm
Mm.
gonna hit it out there.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
also like moments like where we see stuff on Twitter as it's happening, and we just send it to each other, and then that's kind of what that's it.
yeah.
Like we should really be making more of an effort from this platform to be doing it on.
So, like, what was the one I saw earlier? Oh yeah, Warner Bros. Announced that it was partnering with AI company Futureverse to make Ready Player One a real thing. I love Ready Player One.
What?
I love Ready Player One. It's a great film. So I quote retweeted from the cutscene account, and I went, "Companies and people who buy into stuff like this really don't understand what a cautionary tale is anymore.
Mm,
Genuinely terrifying implications of media literacy being at an all-time low. Ready Player One, while it does look awesome, and yeah, it's a video game world you can live in, is a cautionary tale because it's about mega corporations trying to take this thing that people enjoy and make it horrible, and people are going to keep having to use it because everyone lives in tower blocks stacked a million miles high because there's nowhere left to go. It's talking about
yeah, it's not.
like all of the bad things of an over reliance on technology, and they're like, yeah, no, we should make that a real thing. No,
I don't. This has always baffled me with since VR started coming about. It's like, yes, VR was very cool. Some of the early games, like it was fun. This like, oh, new technology, like you're first person in the game. But I always said from then, I was like, VR will never be like
too
this
gimmicky.
thing that people live in. I was like, it just doesn't work that way. What'll happen is you get AR and mixed reality, and you get things in like Google Glass was too ahead of its time, unfortunately. But things like that, where it's like AR in real life, that's where it'll go. So people trying to make Ready Player One or these metaverses and all this, it's like it's not gonna happen. You need to
100%.
find ways to bring tech and that stuff into the real world
Yeah,
through
exactly that.
AR glasses or
Um,
whatever.
so yeah, so if you don't already, make sure you go follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and stuff. We're gonna make
Yes.
more of an effort to be more active on them platforms, and just start. Call. I'm definitely gonna accidentally cause some arguments. A lot of the time in YouTube comments, unless it's like a really egregious thing, I tend to let it go. On Twitter, I'm a lot worse at letting stuff go. So if I tweet something at someone
I
that
look
comes back at me a little bit,
forward
I am gonna back up with the voice.
I
What I
look
will do
forward to me
since
messaging
Horry
you and being like, Connor, I think as a brand, we need to not be saying these things.
So, since Horry is also going to try and be more active, we will tag the end of tweets with a C or a H, depending on who's tweeted it.
If it's a personal opinion, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
go. You realize what I'm going to do now?
Yeah, yeah, you're going
I'm,
to
go-
say something just terrible and just blame it on me.
I'm going to be
Yeah,
like,
cool.
Spider Man is by far the worst MCU character ever, Connor.
It's fine. No one would buy that. Although I do have some strong opinions about Spider-Man and the MCU, but people aren't ready for them yet. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at for 2024, as well as obviously plans for my own channel. I've not streamed on my own channel yet this year, which is crazy. But I've got big plans for the first stream. I'm going to sit there and write stuff. It's going to be great. But one thing that will not be changing in 2024 is headaches regarding content championships. Because we've got our first one of the year, and it is a doozy.
Mm,
Rogue One versus Lord of the Rings: Fellowship of the Rings.
don't like this. Don't
No,
like this
this
matchup
is.
at all.
I know we've said this a couple of times. This might be one of the worst we've had to deal with. Like Andor and Return of the Jedi is pretty rough, but
Yeah, but it's like it's tough last like when it was that because it was same franchise, but at the same time, because it's the same franchise, you're like, okay, well, yeah, there's always one more favorite in a franchise. This is two great films from two separate franchises, and it's like it just gets too difficult.
Yes. Um, but as always, we have 6 categories that are claiming they're going to help us solve this issue.
Mm.
We have personal relevance, how well it has aged, rewatchability, story, acting, cinematography, and visuals.
Rogue One versus Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And as I'm looking here, I'm seeing the word peak a lot on both sides, so this could be fun. Um, Personal relevance, sorry. How would you say Rogue One has affected your life personally?
Um, it's definitely hooked me into Star Wars in a sense. Like, it kind of opened my eyes to there is more than just the Skywalker trilogies. There is other things that went on that have great stories, and it kind of opened the gate for filling in these gaps. That I'm now in love with the fact that we're filling in these gaps, and we've had some of the better content out of that. And
Yeah,
I feel like Rogue One started that.
I get
But
you.
then personal relevance of Lord of the Rings, like it's one of my earlier film, like fantasy film, beloved, kind of hooked me into nerdom. This along with Star Wars, it was like it's it's been there a lot longer than Rogue One has. Unfortunately. Even
It's
though they're
um,
both great.
it's funny. It's really really funny because I've just double checked. Rogue One came out 8 years ago this year.
Is it that long now?
Yeah, 2016.
Wow.
Before COVID, me and Jenna had been together like coming up on 2 years. I'm like what? I'm 16, 17 at the time. Looking out on the world in front of me as I'm becoming like getting ready to become an adult.
Mm,
And I feel like everyone when they're 16 or 17, they start forming their opinions about big things.
mm,
And like as much as we don't like openly discuss it, our opinions on things make it pretty clear where we stand on certain opinions and stuff like that.
yeah.
So seeing a film about rebellion fresh for the first time at that age, and while I don't claim to have the best media literacy in the world, it's better than the bang average seems to be at the minute.
Mm,
I do remember just sitting there and going, there's a message in here for us. There is something that needs to be considered strongly.
mm.
So like it would be remiss of me to pretend it didn't have huge implications in the way I view the world and the way I've gone on to view the world. And I make no secret that I think it's the best Star Wars film
Yeah.
in the way it manages to artistically express itself with beautiful visuals and the strength of the story itself, the homage to A New Hope with the lack of Vader and Vader, as we've discussed previously, being used more like a horror story villain rather than
Mm,
a superhero villain,
yeah.
and the power that gives it. I think it is genuinely a masterpiece that if it was not tied to the Star Wars franchise, but was the same story
Yeah.
told in like a World War II setting, I think it would be discussed as one of the greatest films of all time. I genuinely do. If you
Yeah,
take the
you're probably not
same
wrong
raw
there.
plot
Yeah, yeah.
and push it on something like the Enigma machine,
Yeah.
and this person racing across the Europe with the secret on how to beat Enigma,
Mm-hmm.
I think this film wins Oscars.
Yeah. I get what you mean.
I
Yeah.
think I think it was snubbed because it was a Star Wars film.
Yes, I would agree there.
Whereas Lord of the Rings, and I already had this written down, which I could prove if anyone cares. Literally, onto your point, it's the first film in what is largely regarded one of the greatest trilogies of all time, and it single-handedly created an entirely new generation of high fantasy fans.
Yeah.
And as I've said before on the podcast, I've already got Jenna to agree that the Lord of the Rings trilogy is the first thing we watch when we move out in a couple of months' time into our new home. We're going to sit down the first weekend we really have a chance in our sofa in our new home, and we're going to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Mm.
And as I'm sitting here, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put together a spreadsheet of all of like the films I love as a nerd, and I'll get Jenna to help with films she loves because she has a couple of films that I don't particularly like, but she adores.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to put a spreadsheet together. And in our like first year in our new home, I want to work through all them so that like they are now attached to a new place and a new memory, and I can see them with like almost fresh eyes in a new place.
Yeah.
And Lord of the Rings is, while I've not watched it as recently as I wish I could, purely because of the time commitment,
Mm-hmm.
I adore that franchise, and I've got a feeling when I do get around to watching it again in my new home, it is gonna further ingrain itself in my heart in a way that I'm not fully aware of yet.
Yeah.
How well have they aged is the next question.
I mean, both have aged phenomenally. Just ones have
So well.
longer to keep aging better than the other,
A
which
10-year-old whiskey and a 25-year-old whiskey have different prices for a reason.
yeah, it's tough because it's like I feel like Rogue One has also had a little help from all the added. It was great, don't get me wrong, and it's aged great. But the fact that we've now had even more Star Wars stuff and we're getting Andor and things that are out, that added context makes it feel even better. Whereas like Lord of the Rings on its own has just aged so well.
Yeah.
Just alone. Just
I
chilling.
I I think I've mimicked your exact feelings here. It's Rogue One's aged incredibly well, especially with the addition of Andor and
Mm,
supplementary content. And then for Lord of the Rings, it's aged like an expensive fine wine. Everyone wishes they could watch Lord of the Rings for the first time again. Every couple of months, you see one of them Twitter threads of like, "Oh, what one game, what one show, what one film do you wish you could experience for the first time?"
mm,
And the comments are always flooded with people going, "Lord of the Rings trilogy, Lord of the Rings trilogy." It is always one of them things that people want to be able to experience for the first time again.
yeah. It's just such good.
Rewatchability might be one of the strongest rewatchability duos we've had in the
Yeah,
content championship.
I do feel there is a leaning one way. I do think one is somewhat easier to rewatch than the other,
There
purely
is
because of.
one that is much easier to rewatch.
I will say, I very nearly happened to watch Fellowship of the Ring on New
Oh,
Year's
really?
Eve. I went looking to watch it, but it's not on any streaming services.
Yes. That I can't believe it's not on any streaming
And I
service.
was like, well, I'm not paying to rent it. I have it on Blu-ray, but I haven't got the energy. I'm not going to dig out my Xbox or Blu-ray player to set it up on like, because I was on the TV downstairs and I was like, fine, we watched The Hobbit instead. We watched part one of The Hobbit instead. So I got the vibe of it, but it's like Rogue One, watch it on its own. You can enjoy it. You understand. You don't necessarily need to go on and watch the original trilogy.
Yeah.
You watch the first Lord of the Rings, and well, like you've got to watch the rest of it. Like I've watched the first Hobbit, and I already in my head, I'm like, okay, I need to watch the next one at some point. It opens the door for a bigger commitment.
Yeah. And also, being men of culture that we are, we're not watching the standard edition of
No,
Fellowship. We're
no.
watching the extended cut,
Oh yeah,
which is 3.5 hours.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Normally, if someone says, "Do you want to watch a film at like 10 o'clock at night?" You're like, "Oh, 2 hour film, you're cutting it a bit fine. It's going to be like midnight by the time we're done." Someone says, "Do you want to watch Lord of the Rings Fellowship at 8 o'clock at night?" And you're like, "It's going to be nearly midnight by the time we're done." It's a time commitment, and don't get me wrong, it's worth every second. But that's why rewatches of it are so scarce,
Mm-hmm.
because you do. It's one of them few films that, even though I've seen it before, I'm like, no. If I'm sitting down to watch this, we're sitting down and watch it. I'm locked in. Whereas Rogue One is like 2 hours.
Mm.
Yes, there is obviously a lot of supplementary content, but the story itself is so well self-contained
Yeah.
that you
I think
can just watch
yeah,
it by itself.
you can. And I mean,
Um,
even when Andor's finished, you could watch Andor all the way through into Rogue One and probably still be less time than watching the whole trilogy
yeah.
of the Rings. So,
Um, story.
mm,
This is what I've written for Lord of the Rings.
go on.
Masterpiece. Lord of the Rings is literally one of the greatest stories ever told. I don't think that's an outrageous or a hyperbolic statement. It is a bedrock for a lot of high fantasy. I
Yeah.
think it is the most accessible of that genre of like big expansive high fantasy. Um it's timeless.
Hmm.
The book came out in like 1912 or whatever, or sorry, The Hobbit came out in 1912. And
Yes.
it is still just so deeply ingrained in pop culture. Even still, you
Hmm.
get people calling people who are short hobbits as a joke.
Well, yeah.
Like, what else has that kind of staying power? It's crazy. I think it's such a big piece of pop culture that people don't even realize it's pop culture anymore. It's just culture
Mm,
because it's been pop culture for 30 years with like the films and stuff.
yeah.
25 years. Um, it's kind of now so built in that it doesn't even feel like pop culture anymore.
Yeah, I know what
I
you mean.
guarantee you, you have got children who are like 13 years old calling their short mate a hobbit, not knowing that
Just
it's
because
from
that's,
Lord of
oh,
the
that's
Rings.
from that film that, like, or
They
that
probably
book
don't
their
even know
dad
it's
read
from a
me.
film. They probably don't even know it's from a film. They just know
Possibly.
it means a short person.
Yeah, true.
Um, and like Gollum and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's so deeply ingrained. But on the flip side, and I know this is my opinion, but these are always my opinions. It's my podcast, or our podcast. Um, when I say my, I was talking to a listener. I wasn't talking to
I know.
Holly. This is very much a shared ownership podcast. Jesus Christ, drama alert. But in my opinion, it is the absolute peak of Star Wars. Um, the Force is there. It's alluded to. You get to see the Force in a new way with Donnie Yen's character and the
Mm,
way he interacts with the Force. Um, and you've got this kind of espionage, but rebellion, and you feel tiny against this big entity, but the indomitable human spirit fights against it. It is such good storytelling. And it goes back to what I said earlier on. If this story was just changed the settings and the name slightly, I think this wins Oscars, and it's
I,
snubbed purely because of the allusion to it being in Star Wars.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
I'm not saying I think it's better written than Lord of the Rings. That would be fucking absurd, but it is in its own right stunning.
yeah, it's such a difficult comparison because it's like you say, Rogue One is such a well-contained story and written in such a way to literally, it's written to answer one question, but it's written so well, and it's written in such a there's so much depth to it when there didn't need to be necessarily,
Yes.
and it's like it's a very well written reason for one thing happening, and it made for a great story, made for a great film. But then you got Lord of the Rings. There's a reason that like that trilogy of books is so loved by so many people because it is an incredible story, and it's like, and Peter Jackson did such a great job at turning those books into the films,
Yes.
and it's like it's just like you say, it is nerd like pure nerd culture and into high fantasy. Like it's everyone's gateway into that world
Yeah.
because of just
I
how good
I
of a story it is.
I challenge you to find someone who's a fantasy fan under the age of like 30 who doesn't adore the Lord of the Rings films. There will
Yeah,
be some, of course there will. It won't be easy to find them though.
yeah. Well, we've got a freeze.
Horizontal.
Hello?
Are we back?
We are. I don't know what
Awesome.
happened there.
Yeah, you'll be able to find some who don't like it, but they'll be
Hmm.
few and far between.
Yeah.
Um, Acting. All that can be said about this Lord of the Rings film is wow. Just wow.
Yeah.
The cast is so good. All of the casting decisions made were brilliant. All of the
Yeah.
actors became one with their characters. Elijah Woods, Orlando Bloom, all of them, such
Hmm.
good work. And then on the side of Rogue One, I don't think it's outrageous to say it is the best acting in any Star Wars film. I'll hear arguments about any Star Wars project because of Andor,
Hmm.
but actual acting in the films, because of how much more serious the story is, and like they have to worry less about the Force and stuff, they can be more serious.
Yeah, I'd say for Star Wars film, I can't disagree.
And Mads, he
It's true.
came into the Star Wars universe. He'd never even watched Star Wars before agreeing to do Rogue One, which is crazy when you remember who his brother is.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't disagree there. The acting in Rogue One for Star Wars film, probably the best Star Wars film.
It's so good that I will not be surprised, and this is purely speculation. I won't be surprised if there are people who gave other Star Wars films a chance because
Mm.
of the quality of acting and story in this, and they're like, "Wait, this is Star Wars?"
Yeah, there'll be people that watched Rogue One and then went on to actually watch more Star Wars
Yeah,
stuff. But then you have got like the just like you said, the cast of Lord of the Rings, Ian um,
McKellen.
McKellen,
Yeah, it's it's it's
Gandalf.
so crazy. This is why this is like the quarter final because these films are absolute
Yeah.
juggernauts in all categories. Cinematography. Oh,
Also a
so
difficult one again.
I am aware of personal biases here.
Yeah.
I think there were more films made to be beautiful around the time of Lord of the Rings compared to Rogue One.
Yes.
I feel like by the time we get to Rogue One, a lot of films had this kind of, it's not the right word, but this kind of beige, bland, just kind of film look
Mm.
that wasn't anything special. And then Rogue One came and reminded us that cinematography exists and here are these beautiful shots. They took like iconic style shots of Star Wars
Mm.
and then just turned the prettiness factor up, and the lighting and everything is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that I prefer Rogue One over Lord of the Rings in this category because Rogue One did it when there was a vacuum of it. And I do understand that Lord of the Rings is also stunning and beautiful, but it did it in a time when more films were stunning and beautiful, so it doesn't feel as special.
I It's so difficult. Rogue One is what I would class the start of what modern Star Wars looked like. It took the best of Star Wars, the types of shots, the what, like whatever, and just like you said, made it prettier, made it cleaner, made the like they moved into using really good CGI. Like everything had this extra polish.
Do you know what it is? We've seen this like the iconic kind of Star Wars shot of a planet where it like pans
Mm.
onto the planet. And they always looked cool and they were fun shots. But what started in Rogue One was it gave you that feeling of wow, that's a planet.
Mm.
It gave you this feeling of like when you see them really high quality pictures of the Earth from space, where you're like,
Yes.
wow, that's the Earth. They found a way to capture that where previous
Mm.
Star Wars films hadn't. They're like, wow, that is such and such a planet, and you're like, that is there. That is wow, how stunning a planet. Which
Yes.
I know a lot of people don't find planets that crazy, but like seeing a really high quality picture of a planet does blow your mind a little bit. It's like, wow, we're so tiny and insignificant. That's crazy, and they
Mm-hmm.
managed to capture that.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. But then Lord of the Rings, I think for how beautiful it looks, and knowing, like, when you look, when you are someone who watches the extended trilogy, you then watch the behind the scenes to know what sort, like, and Peter Jackson talks about, like, the budget and the, like, how taped together situation that was during the filming of the first one to make a film that looked that stunning, because they put the effort in and, like, really put in the hard work to do as much of that practically as physically possible. It just makes it, like, just visually so
I
stunning.
I would give anything to one day. I don't even know if it's possible. I doubt it is, because if it was, it probably already would have been done. I would love nothing more than one day to be able to record the podcast in person in the Shire in
You
New
can go.
Zealand.
You can go.
Yeah, no, but getting permission to sit there and film there and record there is very different. But like, I would love for like,
Sat in a hobbit hole.
I'm just going to assume Peter Jackson owns it. I don't know if he does. I
No,
assume it's kind of just a
don't think he
historical site at
does.
this point. But I'm just I'd love the idea of like this podcast being big enough where we just send Peter Jackson an email. We're like, we'd like to record the podcast in the Shire, and he's like, okay, yeah, no worries.
If that ever
Like,
happens,
that would be the coolest thing.
if that ever happens, we are doing it in a hobbit hole. We are doing forced perspective to make you look tiny and me look like Gandalf. And that is just for the whole, just for the whole podcast.
Like, while one day I'd love for us to have like a set that we record in person every week, just because it would be nicer. There are not many like location places I'd love to be able to record in.
Do you
But
want to move to New
the
Zealand
Shire
and just
could
live
be
at the Shire?
awesome.
Just see if we
They've
can
got
live in the Shire.
They've got terrible web in New Zealand and Australia.
Have you not seen Starlink now? It completely covers Earth.
I'm not giving that man money.
I would if it means we can record in the Shire.
for that one day. But yeah, they're both at the end of the day, we're gonna feel like shit because when we choose a better film in each category, it's gonna feel like we're shitting on the other one, and it's not that at all.
Unfortunately, someone always has to lose.
Exactly. It's not, oh, this is good and therefore that is bad. It's just, this is good and that's fucking great.
Yeah, it's just remembering that this is a bracket and we are very deep into the bracket now. So unfortunately,
you're going to get powerhouses.
Yeah.
But I do think it's time for us to start totting up scores here.
Okay.
So I'm assuming personal relevance for you is Lord of the Rings and for me is Star Wars.
Yeah.
We're just going to tie that one off.
Yeah.
How well it's aged, I think, has to be Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I would go Lord of the Rings.
That makes it 1-0. Rewatchability is Rogue One.
Yeah, I would go Rogue One. Yeah.
Making it 1-1. Story.
I have to go Lord of the Rings.
Go Lord of the Rings? I would concur that is fair. 2-1. Acting. I think it is fair to say that the quality of the ensemble cast for Lord of the Rings beats out the stellar acting performances of the much smaller cast in Rogue One.
Yes, I would say Lord of the Rings.
Which would make it 3-1.
Yep.
Which means I don't feel bad fighting for Rogue One to win.
Ooh, and that's where Connor's disconnected, and we have to just agree that Lord of the Rings is by far the superior. Oh, he's back.
Yeah. I think it's fair to agree Rogue One wins cinematography.
It's so difficult. I would be willing to say a tie for me. So whatever you...
I think my argument is when I think of a lot of shots from Lord of the Rings films, I feel like a lot of my favourite shots are in the second and third. I don't think the first has as many shots where I go, wow.
It's so hard to...
Yeah, you think of it as one entity.
Yeah.
But I in my head, I think more of my preferred like bits where I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I like Return of the King, Two Towers.
Probably more likely, yeah.
Which is why I'm more inclined to go Rogue One.
Fair.
Making it 3-2 Lord of the Rings. Which I can live with. I
Oh
don't think
yeah,
I really expected Rogue One to have much of a chance of knocking Lord of the Rings. I
no,
just wanted to give it a good fight because Rogue One deserves the love.
yeah. Unfortunately, it is against one of the pillars of nerdom. So
Yep.
yeah,
Next week
can't really be it.
is the last of the quarterfinals.
Ooh,
We have only got 4 more weeks left of this content championship bracket.
yes.
We've got the final quarterfinal, the 2 semi-finals, and then the final.
Oh, that final's going to be horrible.
Wait, is that final going to be episode 100? It will be.
It will. Look at the
Quarterfinal
chances.
97, semi-finals 98 and 99, and then
Yeah.
the grand final of the content championship bracket
Planned all
will be
along, guys.
episode 100.
It was planned all along.
We are just so good at content.
Yeah, back when we started this bracket, we knew.
What I will say is, I'm looking at the next quarterfinal. I'm looking at the semi-finals, and it feels a little bit Coughing Baby versus Nuke.
Oh.
So next week's quarterfinal is Winter Soldier versus Phantom Menace.
Okay.
The semi-finals are Harry Potter Prisoner of Azkaban versus Return of the Jedi. And then Lord of the Rings versus the winner of Winter Soldier versus Phantom Menace.
That might be difficult.
What, Lord of the Rings versus Winter Soldier or Phantom Menace?
Yeah.
I don't think it will.
Might be for me if I get what I want.
I think I could put, even though like I help make decisions so it'd be incredibly unethical, I'd be pretty confident putting a couple £100 on what the final's going to be.
Oh, I know who's going to make it fun. Don't make it any easier.
The final, however, might be a brain aneurysm in a bottle.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be very fun.
But you will be there. We will be there no matter what. And it will be episode 100. We're probably, I don't know what shows and stuff will be out. We're probably going to have a fair bit of room for us to do some fun stuff for the 100th episode.
Okay.
When will the 100th episode be? Next week's 97, 98, 99. We will record the 100th episode on the 1st of February 2024.
Well, look at that.
I think we both get rather drunk. I think we do a drunk cast.
A drunk cast.
Yeah, I think we get a bit tipsy.
Just start with me downing an entire bottle of JD.
Yeah. Just absolutely get on it and just look back at just everything we've done so far. And then have a massive drunken debate over what's the winner of our first ever content championship. But that is it from us this week.
Yes,
we'll be back next week. You will be back next week. You're going to like, you're going to subscribe, you're going to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And all them links are down below, so you have no excuse not to. Welcome to 2024. It's going to be a great year, and we will see you next time.
See you next week.